So there were several instances when Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. And all of those instances have something in common. The disciples can't recognize the Lord. Have you ever wondered why? What happened that even when Jesus was close, talked to them, they saw him, yet they were unable to recognize that this is their friend, this is Jesus who was raised from the dead as he promised? While they were still speaking about this, he stood in their midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." But they were startled and terrified and thought that they were seeing a ghost. Did Jesus look like a ghost? But what exactly does a ghost look like? Was he different after the resurrection? Did he come in a different body, had a different unfamiliar look? Did his voice change? I can't understand why the disciples could not recognize Jesus. But then I realized something very important. I believe that it was not about the Jesus. What I mean is, it was not Jesus who changed after his resurrection. He looked exactly the same and he was still the same person. Jesus still spoke with the same voice. So it wasn't Jesus that changed. It was the disciples who changed. No, not physically, but they had let fear control their thoughts. The disciples were changed because they lost their hope and faith in the resurrection. Jesus' disciples changed. They were filled with grief, unbelief, and fear. They were too busy to recognize what was happening to themselves. So once again, Jesus had to open their hearts and eyes to make them able to look up, not down, and recognize their friend who is with them as he promised, who is not dead but alive. You know, this makes me realize how many times I, in my life, have failed to recognize Jesus' presence, especially in those times when I look down out of fear or doubts in moments of grieving after losing someone who died. I failed to recognize the presence of the risen Lord in all those moments when I looked around this world and saw how much sin and evil is around me. Too many times I have looked down instead of looking up, trying to recognize the presence of Jesus in my life and then keep going forward with faith that Jesus is with me all the time. And despite my own doubts, my fears, my sadness, despite my grief. See, Jesus is not changed. Jesus did not leave us even for a moment. He is there walking with us all the time. Jesus is not different, but we are. We'll limit ourselves from seeing and recognizing Him when we sin, when we allow evil to control our hearts. We are blind from seeing Jesus when we become selfish, angry, proud, when we cheat, lie, when we are too busy, and so on. Jesus didn't change after his resurrection. He was still the same. The disciples changed. They lost their hope. Similarly today with us, when we think that God has abandoned us, that what He promised did not happen, that He does not listen to our prayers, no, He does. He is there all the time. Our God never changed and will never change, and He will always remain faithful to His promises. Only we change. We change when we look down, not up. Peace be with you. I am with you. Look up. And let's go to work. God bless you.